This morning we are celebrating the angel tree for the World Hunger Program. For each contribution that is made, an angel is put on the tree. Now, there were some contributions made last week. Now, we usually have a guessing game with the congregation and see how many angels we put on the tree for that week. Well, we can't do too much of a group guessing game, but okay, I'm going to pause for a minute for you to guess in your own minds. Okay, have you come up with a figure? Okay, the figure is that we, for the first week now, will put on the tree 4 angels. So the angel tree now has 4 angels on it. Now, to contribute to the World Hunger Program and to place an angel on the tree, you may click on to the online giving as seen in the offering section of the service, and therein you will find the fact of online giving for World Hunger Program, as well as the ongoing expenses of the congregation and piano fund. But so you click on to that online giving on the offering section, and then you will be able then to find the offering section and click onto that and scroll down, and you'll find the World Hunger Program, so that we can then place additional angels on the tree next week. One of the saddest things to see in life is the gifts of life being ignored and wasted within a person. Even sadder is that all too many children and young people have insufficient self-image or have no one to encourage them to develop the gifts of life which they have. They end up just plodding through life, not knowing its joys, because it may take too much effort and even fear of failure to develop their talents. That is a complete shame. Now, Jesus speaks to this in one of his parables. To illustrate this, he uses the contemporary familiar term of his day of a unit of measuring weight, a talent. Now, a talent was about equal to approximately 75 pounds in today's measurements. The monetary value of a talent was according to the worth of the material being weighed, whether it be gold, silver, copper, whatever. Now, for instance, if the material was silver, it could have been worth about 15 years' wages for the average person. That is the talent which Jesus is speaking about in this parable. Now, the parable told by Jesus related that a man who went on an extended journey distributed his money or talents among his slaves before he left. One received 5 talents, one 2 talents, and one of the slaves just 1 talent. Both the slaves who multiplied multiplied their talents by doubling them, and the other slave, with just 1 talent, he buried it out of fear of losing it. After a long time, the master returned home and saw an accounting of the talents he had given out. Now, upon hearing the results that the two slaves who doubled their talents, they were both rewarded. The slave who buried his talent was reprimanded and left with nothing and banished. This parable was first meant to relate to the scribes and Pharisees. It is a story of how they viewed the law which was in their keeping and their interpretation in contrast to the real truth of God's will. The scribes and Pharisees were the slave who received 1 talent. In order to keep their talent safe, that is the law, they buried it as it stood, not allowing it to increase in substance or relevancy. This is how they view God's law, unchanging and unchangeable. God's revelation had effectively ended with the law, and it was their duty to see that it never changed. Now, to view God as such would not only deny Jesus, who came to fulfill the law by giving a new perspective of God's relationship with his creation, but it viewed God's relationship as one based upon unchanging revenge and fear. With this view, there is the denial that God is constantly being revealed through his active presence within life throughout all generations. To limit God to unchanging and unchangeable laws is to say that God is not a living God and not relevant to each new generation throughout history. Mankind, with each new generation, has experienced continual change since the law-centered religion of the scribes and Pharisees. We have experienced continual revelations of God, beginning with the incarnation in Jesus and his message of love and forgiveness. Today, we are the result of the historic growth of mankind and his growing relationship with God. Throughout this process, God has not been sitting on the sidelines as a disinterested observer, nor has he remained buried in some bygone era. He is and has been alive and active with each step man has taken in the journey of God's creative process. But unfortunately, many choose to live like the scribes and Pharisees. To do so is to limit God's revelation to a book and to past traditions. Jesus tells us to get past such limitations, for God is ever present and always revealing himself with each new moment and each new day. To live only in the past is to limit life itself. To live in and for the past closes the door for new challenges, opportunities, and achievements. We then bury ourselves, and what we have to give to the furtherance of mankind is buried also. This is to hide the gifts, our talents, which we have been given to share with the world. On the other hand, to develop and utilize the gifts we have been given not only brings delight in each new day, but can very well bring hope and joy to someone else. Therein we find our reward. This parable of Jesus gives us a strong message about the realities of life and the reality of God. It tells us that God is not limited to ancient days and laws, or even some canonized writings. To so limit God is to deny his continual presence throughout history. It is this presence which leads man to a greater understanding of the miracles of life, of God's love, and the fact that God's creative process is still alive through us, and how we utilize the gifts and talents that we have. Thereby, the parable tells us that to hide our abilities, talents, and gifts is to live as if in the past and die to the future. It is to deny life itself. But to develop those gifts that we have and to share them is to find the reward of knowing the real joys of life. We are a child of God, and therefore must live as his child as we meet each new day as an opportunity to live it to its fullest. With a society in which so many wish to deny the present and the future in order to live in the past, we must be that witness, that shining witness, to say that God's love and revelation points us to live in the present and work towards fulfilling the hopes and dreams of a new day. This is when we will realize Jesus' words, "Enter into the joy of your master." This is the good news of God's ever-present love and revelation. Amen.